Hello everyone. Today, we're diving into the fastest confessions from suspects, featuring confessions that came suddenly and unexpectedly. So, grab your coffee or tea and stay tuned till the end for the stories I'm about to share. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe. James Washington, a deathbed confession. On a hot summer day in Tennessee, James Washington was just another inmate, serving time for crimes he'd already been convicted of. But on this particular day, something felt different. He was suddenly gripped by a sharp pain in his chest, a heart attack that brought him to his knees. As he lay there, gasping for breath, Washington was convinced his time had come. And with that, he decided he couldn't take his dark secret to the grave. In 1995, Washington had committed a murder, a crime that had haunted him ever since. The guilt weighed heavily on his conscience. With what he believed were his final breaths, Washington confessed to the killing, hoping to cleanse his soul before death. But fate had a twist in store. He survived the heart attack. When Washington recovered, he attempted to retract his confession, claiming he had been delusional, but it was too late. His words were already on record, and they led to his conviction. What he thought would be his final act of repentance turned out to be the very thing that sealed his fate in court. Matthew Cordle, It's My Fault. In Ohio, the nights were always lively, with bars packed and streets filled with laughter. Matthew Cordle was out with his friends, enjoying the night. But as the night wore on, alcohol clouded his judgment. Against his better instincts, Matthew got behind the wheel, drunk and reckless. In a moment of impaired judgment, he struck a pedestrian with his car, killing the man instantly. The guilt consumed him. Matthew couldn't shake the image of the lifeless body from his mind. Unable to live with what he had done, he took to social media, uploading a video confession. In the video, his face was a mask of remorse. "I did it. I killed that man," he admitted, his voice heavy with the weight of his actions. The video quickly went viral, and the police had no need to investigate further. Matthew had already turned himself in. His voluntary confession led to a swift trial, where Matthew pleaded guilty. He faced the consequences of his actions, but most importantly, he faced the truth without hesitation. Jennifer Pan, the plan unravels. In the quiet suburbs of Canada, Jennifer Pan grew up under the strict and watchful eyes of her perfectionist parents. They expected nothing but the best from her, pushing her to excel in every aspect of her life. But Jennifer felt suffocated by their high expectations, and over time, resentment festered in her heart. Desperate to break free, she devised a chilling plan. She would have her parents killed. Jennifer carefully orchestrated the plot, hiring hitmen to carry out the deed. But things didn't go as planned. The hitman shot her parents, but her father miraculously survived and named Jennifer as the mastermind behind the attack. Initially, Jennifer played it cool, lying through her teeth to cover her tracks. But as the police interrogation intensified, her defenses began to crumble. Under the relentless pressure, Jennifer broke down and confessed to everything. The burden of her guilt was too much to bear. Her confession was the final unraveling of her carefully laid plans, and it led to her conviction. Jennifer, who had tried so hard to control everything, ended up trapped by her own actions. Chris Watts, The Collapse of Lies. In the peaceful suburb of Colorado, Chris Watts seemed like the perfect family man. He had a loving wife, Shanann, and two beautiful young daughters. But behind the facade of domestic bliss, Chris was a man tormented by inner turmoil. His marriage was in trouble, and he was having an affair with another woman, a secret that gnawed at him from the inside. One morning, Chris reported that his wife and daughters were missing. The police arrived, the media swarmed, but Chris was hiding a horrifying truth. Initially, he played the role of the concerned husband and father, pleading for their safe return. But the facade didn't hold for long. Under the scrutiny of a polygraph test, Chris couldn't maintain his lies any longer. 2 days after reporting his family missing, Chris confessed to murdering them. The country was shocked by the revelation. Chris's attempt to hide his crime had failed spectacularly. and his confession sealed his fate in the courtroom. Mindy Sanghera, consumed by jealousy. In a quiet corner of the United Kingdom, Mindy Sanghera was consumed by jealousy. Her cousin had become engaged to a pregnant woman, and the news filled Mindy with a deep, burning envy. Over time, this jealousy turned into an obsession. Mindy couldn't stand the thought of her cousin being with someone else, and one night, she let her jealousy drive her to commit an unthinkable act. She murdered the woman. The police quickly identified Mindy as a suspect and brought her in for questioning. At first, Mindy maintained her innocence, trying to cover up her crime. But as the hours passed, the weight of what she had done became too much for her to bear. Less than 24 hours later, Mindy confessed to everything, unable to live with the guilt any longer. Her confession was the tragic end to a story driven by jealousy and obsession. Mindy's actions, fueled by her darkest emotions, led her to a place from which there was no return. Gary Gilmore, the man who embraced death. Utah, 1976. Gary Gilmore was a man who had lost his way, his life spiraling into darkness. One day, with a cold heart and no remorse, he murdered two people. After committing the murders, Gilmore didn't try to run or hide. He didn't care about the consequences. When the police caught up with him, he confessed to the crimes without hesitation. But his confession was no ordinary one. Gilmore insisted on receiving the death penalty. The legal process moved swiftly, and Gilmore was granted his wish. He demanded to be executed by firing squad, and just months after his confession, his sentence was carried out. Gary Gilmore's story is one of the fastest confessions, followed by one of the quickest executions in U.S. history. He faced death as resolutely as he had committed his crimes, leaving a legacy as a man who embraced his fate without flinching. Luka Magnotta, a grisly confession. In May 2012, the world was horrified by the actions of Luka Magnotta, a Canadian actor and model. Magnotta had committed a brutal and gruesome murder, filming the entire act and posting the video online. The footage showed the dismemberment of his victim, Jun Lin, a Chinese international student. After committing the murder, Magnotta fled to Europe, but the international manhunt soon caught up with him in Berlin. When he was arrested, he didn't resist. Magnotta calmly confessed to his crimes, showing no remorse for his actions. His cold and calculated demeanor shocked even the most seasoned investigators. His confession led to one of the most high-profile trials in Canadian history, and he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for 25 years. Dennis Rader, BTK Killer, the family man turned serial killer. For over 3 decades, Dennis Rader, known as the BTK Killer, bind, torture, kill, terrorized Wichita, Kansas. He was a devoted family man and a respected member of his community, hiding his dark side from everyone around him. Rader meticulously planned and executed 10 murders between 1974 and 1991, sending taunting letters to the police and media. In 2005, after years of silence, Rader sent a floppy disk to the police, which they traced back to him. When he was arrested, Rader initially denied everything. But soon after, he began to confess, detailing every one of his murders with chilling precision. His need for attention and recognition ultimately led to his capture and confession. Rader was sentenced to 10 consecutive life terms in prison. Henry Lee Lucas, the man who confessed to hundreds of murders. Henry Lee Lucas was a drifter who confessed to killing hundreds of people across the United States. Though many of his confessions were later discredited, Lucas's initial admissions shocked the nation. In 1983, after being arrested for the murder of his mother, Lucas began confessing to numerous other crimes, claiming to have killed over 600 people. Law enforcement agencies from across the country began investigating Lucas's claims. Some believed him to be the most prolific serial killer in American history. However, many of the confessions were later proven to be false, leading to widespread criticism of how the investigations were handled. Despite the controversy, Lucas was convicted of several murders and sentenced to death, though his sentence was later commuted to life imprisonment. Thank you for joining me today as we explored the fastest confessions from suspects. I hope you found these stories as intriguing and surprising as I did. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to stay updated on our latest content. Feel free to share your thoughts or any suggestions for future topics in the comments below. Until next time, take care and stay curious.